revenue minus cost. So if you want to find the profit in terms of x, take the revenue, which is negative 5x squared plus 800x minus 100, and subtract the cost, which is 300x plus 200. So we have negative half x squared plus 800x minus 100. Distribute the negative sign here. Get negative 300x, negative 250. You combine like terms, you should get choice 4. When you look at question 2, we want to factor x to the 4th minus 9y squared. There's no GCF. All of these terms are perfect squares. There's a subtraction sign in the middle. So this is difference of two perfect squares. So you want to think what times itself is x to the 4th. That would be x squared times x squared. When you're multiplying, what do the signs have to be to give you back a negative? So they would have to be different. So you could either put the minus first and the plus second, or vice versa. And then what times itself is 9y squared? That would be 3y and 3y. So the correct choice here should have been choice 2. Looking at question 3, what you would want to do is you would want to look at each choice and multiply it out, see if it gives you the original. 4x squared minus 4x minus 120. So if you distribute the 2 here, for choice 1, you would get 4x squared minus 4x minus 120. So this one is good. If you distributed the 4 here for choice 2, you would get 4x squared minus 4x minus 120. So that one is good. For choice 3, I'm going to first multiply the x plus 6 times the x minus 5, and then distribute the 4. So if I did that, I would get 4. And in parentheses, I would have x times x is x squared. X times negative 5 is negative 5x. And then this would be 6x minus 30. So if you simplify that even more, if you distribute it, it would be 4 times x squared plus x minus 30. And if you multiply that out, you would get 4x squared plus 4x minus 120. So this one is not fun. Looking at choice 4, I could distribute and so 4x squared minus 4x minus 120. That one is equivalent, so the correct answer should be choice 3. Looking at question 4, I want to try to factor this. So there's no GCF, there's nothing in common. It's not difference of 2 squares because you have more than 2 terms. All perfect squares with a difference in between. So I'm going to try 3 terms. So first I want to think about what multiplies to x to the 4th. So that would be x squared times x squared. You need to have the same number times itself. Then I want to think about what factors multiply to 36 and add to negative 20. So it would be negative 6 and negative 6. The correct answer here would be choice 2. So if we look at question 5, we're being asked to express this in simplest form. The first thing I notice here is that my middle factor has an exponent of 2. So if I'm using ordered operations, I always have to make sure that I evaluate exponents before I multiply. So I'm going to rewrite this as 3x cubed times 2y times 2y. So instead of 2y squared, I wrote it out times itself times the 4x to the 4th. So now if I multiply all of my coefficients, I have 3 times 2 times 2 times 4. That's going to give me 48. And then if I look at my like terms, x cubed times x to the 4th is going to give me x to the 7th when I add my exponents. And y times y would give me y squared. So the correct choice here should have been choice 4. Looking at question 6, we're being asked for the products to binomials. You could have taken the box method or you could have used the distributive method. I'm going to use the distributive method here. So x over 4 minus 1/3 is x over 4 plus 1/3. So when I distribute, x times x is x squared, 4 times 4 is 16. X times 1 is just x, 4 times 3 is 12. Distribute the negative 1/3 now. It's going to give me negative 1 times x is negative x. 3 times 4 is 12.
Negative 1/3 times positive 1/3 is negative 1 over 9. Now, this was one of those special cases because I had two binomials that had the same terms but different signs. So that means that my middle terms are going to cancel, and my answer is going to be the binomial x squared over 16 minus 1 over 9, choice 2. Question 7, we're being asked to find which system of equations can be used to represent the situation. So we're being told that paperback books were sold for $2, hardcover books were sold for $5. The library raised $271 and sold 89 books. So if I let x equal my books that are soft covered and I let y equal my hardcover books, if I have 89 total, when I add them up, I should have x plus y is equal to 89. And now if I attach the money to them, 2 times x, since it's $2 for every softcover book, and 5 times y, it's $5 for every hardcover book, I know that they raised a total of $271. So this is going to come out to be the system of equations in choice 4. Now, question 8, which graph shows a line where each value of y is 2 less than half of x? So I first have to figure out what equation I'm looking at here. So they're telling me y is. So is represents my equal sign. 2 less than half of x. So half of x means I'm taking half of x, which would be 1/2 times x, or you could have represented it as x over 2. And it's 2 less than. Now you have to remember that less than is when I use the reverse order. So even though 2 came before half of x, less than tells me to subtract it from half of x. So now I need to see which equation here is drawn correctly to represent this line, and it's choice 4. I can see the y-intercept of negative 2, and it has a slope up 1 over 2.
Okay, taking a look at question 9, you want to try to solve the inequality. So, given the inequality, so 115 plus 5p is plus 3. So to isolate the p, I would subtract 115. So 5p is less than or equal to 35. Then divide both sides by 5. You get that p is less than or equal to 96. The correct choice, since p is representing pocket protectors, would be taking a look at question 10. You want to know for which value will that result in irrational. Now you can think about simplifying each of these choices because the square root of 16 is 4 squared 49 seconds. So if you add a fourth plus a seventh, anytime you add two fractions, you're going to get rational answers. So this choice 2 would be 1/2 plus, and now we run into trouble because the square root of 8 is not rational. So I'm adding a half plus an irrational number. That's going to give me an irrational answer. So the correct answer would be choice 2. If you went through the rest of your choices, you should see that you're really adding two fractions together. So when you're adding fractions, you should get a rational answer. Same thing for choice 4. It would be 110 plus 112 plus 8. Rational. Looking at question 11, whatever comes after it's subtracted from that actually goes first. So 3/2 x squared minus 1/4 x minus 4. Remember to put the second polynomial in parentheses because you're subtracting each term. So really with this first polynomial, you can just drop the parentheses because it's distributing positive 1 to each term. Here in the second polynomial, since I'm distributing a negative 1, I have to switch the sign of each of the terms. Now I want to combine like terms, so I have 3/2 x squared minus 5/2 x squared. If I have the same denominator, I can add the numerators, so that would give me negative 2 over 2 x squared. I have negative 1/4 x and positive 3/4 x, which would give me positive 2/4 x. And I have negative 4, negative 1, which would give me a negative 1. You can simplify this even further. Negative 1
being asked for the product of this trinomial by this binomial in standard form. So I'm going to use the box method to find this product. I'm going to draw myself a box, and I just need to know, because this is a binomial times a trinomial, one side of the box has to have a space for 2 terms, one side has to have a space for 3. So I'll place my 2x minus 5, and 3x squared plus 4x minus 2, and now multiply. So my first box, 2x times 3x squared, should give me 6x to the third. 2x times 4x is going to give me 8x squared. 2x times negative 2 will give me negative 4x. Now I'll distribute the negative 5. Negative 5 times 3x squared is negative 15x squared. Negative 5 times 4x is negative 20x. And negative 5 times negative 2 gives me a positive 10. So I'm going to write out all of my terms. Now I'm going to look to see if I have any like terms I can combine. So I see I have a positive 8x squared and a negative 15x squared. There is no like term with the x cubed, so I'm just going to rewrite 6x cubed minus 7x squared is what I get when I combine those first like terms. Then I have minus 20x and minus 4x is going to give me minus 24x, plus 10 is my only constant, so that is also the simplest form. For question 13, I'm being asked to express my answer as a trinomial in standard form. So the first thing I see here is that my binomial x minus 2 is being squared. So I'm going to rewrite that out as 3 times x minus 2 times x minus 2 minus 2 times x minus 1. So I'm going to first start out by multiplying these two binomials using the box method. So x times x gives me x squared. X times negative 2x. Negative 2, is negative 2x. Another negative 2x, and negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. So I have a 3 in front of this product, and now inside I'm going to have x squared minus 2x minus 2x plus 4 minus 2 times x minus 1. If I simplify my like terms, I'm going to have minus 4x plus 4 as my trinomial. 2 times x minus 1. Now I need to distribute the 3. So I'm going to get 3x squared minus 12x plus 12. Now when I distribute this negative 2x, just remember that the sign goes with it. So negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. Now that I've completed all the multiplication necessary, I need to again look for like terms. I can see some like terms here. So I have 3x squared minus 14x plus 14 as my final answer in standard form. And for question 14, we're being asked to factor completely. So the first thing you should always look for when you're factoring is there a GCF? So the first thing I'm going to look for is a GCF, and I see that I have one, and it's 2. So if I factor out a GCF of 2, what I'm left with inside my other factor is x to the 4th minus 16. Now, because I have 2 terms, I know the only other option here would be dots. So I see that I do have the difference, and I also have 2 perfect squares. So this is going to break down into x squared plus 4 and x squared minus 4. Now, the only method that I should always be looking for again is dots. So I'm asking myself, with the subtraction, is this dots again? And again, I see that I have 2 terms, and they're both perfect squares, so I do have dots. So I'm going to go one step further, and this is going to factor into x plus 2, x minus 2, to give me my final factored answer.
Okay, taking a look at the last question, I want to write a system of inequalities. What inequality is include the monetary amount? So it's $10 for X packages of meat is 10X plus $5 for Y packages of croutons, 5Y. And we want to make at least for $3,125. Now you know you can only purchase a maximum of 475. So some number of knee-high socks plus some number of crew socks can only be at most 475. So here are my 2 inequalities. Now to graph these 2 inequalities, use two different colors. You know what? Why don't I write this one red so that you can see the difference. So I'm going to start with that one. I'm going to isolate subtract x from both sides. So y is less than or equal to negative 1x plus 475. So that means if I want to graph this, I'm going to go to 475 on the y-axis. That's my y-intercept. My slope would be negative 1 over 1. You have to look at the label. Now, if you look at the x-axis, we're going up by 20, 25, 50, 75, 100. If you look at the y-axis, you're also going up by 25. So when you think about a slope, the slope of negative 1 is really equivalent to down 25 to the right 25. It's 25. Down 25 is negative 25, and right 25 is positive 25. So negative 25 divided by 25 really still gives me that slope of negative 1. So I would be going down 1 over 1. The smartboard is off just a little bit here. Now this is including, so it should be a solid line. So I'm going to draw my solid line in. And I'm going to pick a test point. So I'm going to test 0, 0. So just for your reference, 0, 0 is right down here. So if I tested 0, 0 in the original, x plus y is less than or equal to 475. So 0 plus 0 is less than or equal to 475. So is 0 less than or equal to 475? It is. So that means from my line, I should be shading to cover where 0, 0 is, which would mean that you're shading downward. I'm going to label my line x plus y is less than or equal to 475. Now I want to graph my other inequality, so I have to isolate y. It's going to take a little more work, so subtract 10x from both sides. 5y is greater than or equal to negative 10x plus 3,125. And we want to divide every piece by 5. So y is greater than or equal to negative 2x plus 625. So we go to the y-intercept of 625. Now my slope here is negative 2. So instead of thinking about it as negative 2, I'm going to think about it as negative 50 divided by 25, because that's really still equivalent to negative 2. So negative 50 would be down 2 boxes. 25 would be over 1. So really my slope is down 2 over 1. The trolley sign is inclusive, so again, I'm going to use a solid line. I'm going to pick a test point of 0, 0. So I take my original inequality. I test 0, 0. 10 times 0 plus 5 times 0. Is that greater than or equal to 3,125? And it is. Not true. So it's false. Because 0, 0 doesn't work, I'm going to shade where 0, 0 doesn't work. Go in the opposite direction. So now face this so that there's space on the graph to shade. Shading. Make sure the label is above as well. This is 10x plus 5y is greater than or equal to 3,125. I want to answer the question at the back. So determine and state one combination of stocks that will allow Connor to make at least 3,125 while selling no more than 475 pairs. So the answers really here will vary because you could have picked any point in the shaded overlapping section. So suppose I pick this point here, I would say that's 325